Okay, good to meet you. I'm Kevin.
So, okay. I guess we can get started. Are you guys going to, Sirat and Nina, are you guys going to get on the web?
I'm joining now.
Okay.
What's his name? University.
So on the call, I see Elizabeth, Ian, Jeffrey, Tim, Sirat, and Nina. Am I missing anybody?
Hello, this is Jean.
Yeah, she said.
Oh, Jing. Sorry.
And Trevor is here.
Hi, Trevor.
Okay,
Okay.
we're in. Yeah.
So I haven't missed anybody else, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll assume then that we have everybody. So on the agenda today, we basically want to talk a little bit about the action items that we have. And then we have a very fairly brief list of the new DataMed features that we talked about last time. And I guess it's a good time to kind of regroup and get updates from all the team members. And I think it's time for us to start looking at the no-cost extension plans that are most likely approved. So maybe we need to start planning and to figure out exactly the routes that we want to take to go through those. So with the data type ontology, as we all discussed last time, Yuling generated a list of data types and Jeff sent it to me. I need to send it out to the CDT. I haven't done that yet. And I also haven't reviewed it yet. So
Yeah,
I will do that.
Yeah, part of that was that RAO is pretty broad.
Okay.
Because it includes a whole swath of an ontology. So the question is if we want to focus on one of those branches that I sent in that email.
Yeah, from what you sent in, Jeff, it did seem relevant to me. But anyways, I mean, I think I'll send it out to the whole team, and then maybe next week we can talk about it.
Yes, yeah, because Yuling's back from a vacation next week, so that would be good.
Okay.
So this data type ontology is something actually we're going to develop, or we're going to just leverage that existing one, try to come up with one?
Well, the RAO, which Felipe Alejandros is on, and what they put together includes the EDEM ontology and a couple other pieces, and so that's why it's fairly broad, because it includes the EDEM data types and some other things. It was in the email that I'd sent, so that's why we need to look at that and just decide if that one branch I sent is what we want to focus on for our annotations at the current time.
I see. So the review is really trying to check maybe the branch you send if it's sufficient enough.
Yeah.
For the annotation. Okay.
And if the other branch or if any other branches, we should pull in, but I mean, it gets pretty broad. It talks about domains of biology as well. The data types are sometimes duplicated because you have the type of experiment and the data generated. But I put the links in there to BioPortal, which will let you, view and browse. Because within the ontology file itself, I mean, you'd have to load that into Protege or something. It's easier to do via BioPortal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But this one, whatever the RAO is, was actually put together by Felipe and Alejandra as part of DataMed work.
Oh, this whole IO thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, we have ongoing discussions with the Cedar Commons pilot folks. I'm not sure if we are going to have the meeting tomorrow, but typically you have the meeting every Wednesday at 3 p.m. to figure out a plan of work. So, Jeff, if we do have the meeting, will you be able to attend?
Yeah, I'm not traveling.
Okay. Because I guess right now what we are waiting for is to get some kind of synthetic data from them. I see Ian is on the call. So, Ian, did you have a chance to look through whatever information they sent out to you, and to see what kind of data types and other things we would potentially see?
Let me see. I have not gone through it in detail. Let's see if I can get it quickly here. Yeah, no, I'll have to follow up with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I guess that would also kind of, if you are able to maybe put together something for Jeff and Yuling, it might be useful for us. I mean, we don't need to see the complete details, but just what kind of, generally data objects we may expect to see from this group.
All right. So
Then I
I've
think
got the list of grants here that this was coming from. So, yeah, as I think Lucilla had noted, there's about 90 of them. At the moment, what I've got is the list of grants, and these are hieroglyphics. The numbers like U01 blah blah blah. So it's going to need some more work to go through this list and work out what these are.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so they didn't send you just a list of the pledged, as they call it, pledged data objects from each of the groups? I did not get
that. I just got a spreadsheet which was a list of grant IDs. So I think I have to see if David can give us something a bit more informative.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could do the groundwork on working out what all of these projects are, but I think if they got the information about what was pledged, that's going to be more useful to us.
Maybe that's something that we could request tomorrow.
Yep.
If we have the meeting.
Okay.
So for the new features that we are working on, so Siraj, do you have any update?
So I have just the access for production service today.
Okay.
I will run the BN25 script on the production.
Okay. So that means that right now the ranking has shifted to BM25, right?
It will be, yeah.
Okay.
After I run the script, yeah. Ranking script.
And then were you able to give the data that the Emory group wanted to them?
Yes, today I think I can copy and send them the file with Google Drive. Yeah.
Okay. And just to let everybody know, the UIUC folks were going to transfer all the data, all their code into into the BioCaddy organization, and I just gave them, writing access to the organization yesterday. So I think we will see that pretty soon.
Okay.
And also for the DAT output, Firas, I know you said you were going to work on that the next.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we will go down and look at the other things, right?
Yes. I think that will be the first part that we will do in the Dutch. standardization.
Okay. So also I know we haven't revisited this, but probably we could do this next week. We probably need to go back and look at the list of data repositories that we have, and I think come up again with a list where it, and get it prioritized the way.
Yeah, and we also that next slide is also we need to finalize the decision.
Right.
And sorry, not the NCE plans. If you go back, because we had discussed that there were some data repositories that were being indexed not really at the data set level. We discussed that a couple weeks ago. And so we need to decide how, what we're actually going to do for those.
Okay.
And we discussed it a number of weeks ago, but with the, with the all hands meeting coming up and all the NCE stuff, I think that sort of got lost in the shuffle. So we should put that on the agenda for next week.
Okay.
Just because we need to finalize that so we can get some of those repositories indexed, because it depends how we do it.
Okay. And I guess, is there anything else that we should talk about with just this list? Or because I also think for the common data elements work, that kind of folds into the no-cost extension work, so we probably don't need to talk about that. And I'm not sure at this point of time if we will be doing any one-on-one user evaluations. We will still get user feedback from our surveys and the forms on the DataMed website, but I do not think we have planned any user studies as is for the next couple of months.
So I'm not suggesting that we need to do that, but and I think the feedback mechanisms that you mentioned are useful, but I think we might want to be thinking about how we make sure that there are still people engaged who are going to give us feedback. Now,
right.
Those could include the people who've given evaluations in the past because they've got some background with DataMed, but it wouldn't be limited to that. We're interested in people who would look at the application from any source, but I think if we just sit here and expect that people will try out these features and give us feedback, I suspect we might be disappointed, so we might want to be thinking about how we make sure that we engage with the right group so we get some feedback.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
So with regard to the no-cost extension plans, the first aim of the no-cost extension is to have an in-depth indexing and linkage of a couple of repositories. The idea is to actually have, like for example, for the GDC, which is the Genomic Data Commons, and TCIA, the data is actually derived from the same patient. So the idea is to index them deeper and also link them up, and this is true also for GTEx along with GDC. So this was going to be one set of repositories that could be a potentially, test set. The next one is, which is fairly similar in terms of the context, is the import and wiper. These both apparently also have data sets that arise from the same source but are not linked right now. So this is something that we are supposed to be looking into. And what I guess one of the things we would need to talk about is for the in-depth indexing, what needs to be done, and what we want to do about it.
Well, for some of them like ENDAR, that's really about getting at the common data elements, right? So ENDAR, ICPSR, FITBR, that's all about the common.
Those three are about the CDEs, yeah.
That's the CDEs, and then the top two are really about the interlinking. And so the first issue there is just would probably be, to grab examples of the interlinkages between them. Right, so we have some working examples, and then we'd have to discuss in the UI how we want to display that and what metadata we need about that, right?
Yeah, what metadata I think would need to actually meet, that would mean that we extend the DATS model, right?
Right, but it's also what do we need to support the UI, right? So how are we going to sort of display that information? Because that will sort of feed into what the metadata needs to be as well. Maybe if we just get a couple examples from the top two, about the interlinkages, so that we can talk about the UI piece.
There's an underlying, and I think it's relatively simple need that we want to try and show some results on, or demonstrate the value of. So the two examples are with the GDC and the Cancer Imaging Archive, the fact that they've got some collections which are made up of the same patients. And the other example is that I asked the ENDAR folks if they had something similar, and they said they did. So my suggestion would be to follow up with those two groups and understand more about what they've got, and then see how we can demonstrate that, work out what metadata we would need in order to be able to show that these are data sets that when they are taken together, so for example with the GDC and the TCIA, you've got what I've been calling a super data set, which has both genomic and imaging data on the same set of patients. And so it's the use case is uncovering that fact. And to do that may require something relatively simple.
Right. I also actually put this up because I think this is what we put in for the no-cost extension.
Mm-hmm.
But we first...
Right. There are a number of things here, right?
Yeah. So the first step be actually to set up the meetings with the repositories, I think.
Yeah, because that's where we'd get the
or
examples.
Yeah, responsible people like Greg
Right.
Farber for ENDAR, right? And and then that would be a first step before getting to the repositories.
Well, it'd be more than Greg, right? Because we need one of the technical people.
Yes, right, indeed. I said we start with Greg, maybe ahead of the next meeting, so that ahead of that meeting, maybe via email, we could ask Greg to identify who those people would be, so the first meeting doesn't consist of, well, let's find out who those people would be.
So
I
this would
can follow up with Greg, because I opened the conversation with him as we were putting the NCE together.
So I just want to. So we will get in touch with the GDC folks, but I wonder if the idea is to talk to the GDC, TCIA, and GTEx all together, or do we talk with them independently? Because I think scheduling all of them together may not be very...
No, it doesn't make, out of those three, GDC and TCIA would make sense together. And then with, depending on what Greg would say, then with ENDAR, we might have a couple of different repositories that we need to get together.
Okay, so maybe I can also ask Alison, because I remember that it was Alison who suggested that we do import and Viper.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So at least that's the first step. I think that's what we're going to do. And then once we have appropriate information, then we can, I guess, talk about expanding that.
Yep. Yeah, and as I was mentioning, we need to also not just look at the metadata per se, but also how we want that represented for the user, because that might, also include some additions to DATS, for the UI.
Hi, Jeff. Do you have in mind what kind of things? This is
Well,
Alejandra.
it depends on how we want to represent, like if we have to backfill some metadata, because it depends how we want the links to appear and things like that. So, it might be in DATS, it might not. So, the question is how the representation is not just the metadata itself, right? But sometimes there's some additional information that's needed for the UI. So I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost, so that we go incorporating metadata and then the UI needs some additional stuff for how we want it, displayed.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it would be great if we, as soon as you notice anything, we start recording those. So.
Yep.
So this additional information, Jeff, do you can you give an example of what it could be potentially?
Well, it's going to be if it's around the subject, right? So there's going to be some metadata related to the subject that a study is related to, which I don't believe is in DATS right now.
Okay. Yeah, but that's part of the indexing, right? We will pull it in if we
Right. But the question is, what does, like for metadata, we could just put in a subject ID, but that might not be enough for.
I see.
If we want to know what other repositories that subject is in. So we need to think a little bit about, the metadata and the UI, they're two separate things, but we have to make sure that they serve one another, right, in some way.
Okay. So for aim 2, it was to expand the activities that were related to schema.org, and for these, the use cases, or at least the repositories that we would be using as use cases were the IEDB, ICPSR, and FIDBIR. I know that we have ICPSR that's exporting data to us. I'm not sure about IEDB, but I remember that Philippe had said that you were working with IEDB. Is that right, Alejandra?
Yes, that's correct. There is a first pass on the mapping from the IEDB model to DAMS. As far as I know, it is on a spreadsheet. I'm not sure if there was a transformation file created from that, though.
So just to understand this, with these 3 repositories, am I right in thinking what we're talking about is these are 3 repositories that are saying we will put schema.org markup in our pages, and we're going to harvest it from those? Is that what we're talking about?
I think the idea is for these 3 repositories, we will get the repositories to embed the JSON DAX document on each of their landing pages that can be harvested and indexed.
So I think that's the same thing I was saying.
Right.
So when you say a landing page, you mean a landing page for a data set.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And ICPSR has already done this in some fashion. But so the idea here is that in Jeff's scheme of things, for the options for how you ingest from a particular repository, this would fit number 3 on your list, Jeff, which is the most desirable but most elusive at the moment of being able to get a standard feed from repositories, and the repositories take on the task of providing that feed. And effectively, they're providing that feed by embedding this as schema.org on each landing page. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Have we talked to IEDB about that, or is that?
That's the next part of the question.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm going into that part of the question, Jeff, but I'm just trying to clarify. So indeed, we would need to know that each of those are doing what we've just said, but I'm trying to get clear about what it is we mean when we say expand activities, because that could mean many things.
Well, for IEDB, as far as I know, they wanted to provide FAIR data and be indexed in BioCADI. So, yeah, I don't know if exactly the understanding is that they will be exporting that, but we can follow up the discussion with them.
But as a result of the bioschemas implementation through Elixir, so Carol has mentioned, for example, that PDB are going to do schema.org markup. So the list of repositories here could be changeable depending on who is making schema.org markup available.
Yes, the thing is that at least in the bioschemas perspective, is a slightly less comprehensive. I mean, the bioschemas descriptions intend to be on purpose quite, having only a few metadata elements. So I think then the number that we were discussing is to have 7 elements. So in that sense, that could be more comprehensive. But yeah, definitely both are complementary.
I mean, I think one of the issues is that, Alejandra, that you just mentioned is how do we sort of merge sort of the schema.org and DAT sort of publishing. Because if schema.org might not go all the way, and so how does that then relate to a repository having to publish DATs in addition to schema.org? Maybe it's just the parts of the schema.org, or is it a DATS extension within schema.org? I mean, I'm not. I don't think we have an answer for that, but that's one thing we'll have to sort of work through.
Yes, and I think that what we have in mind is to consider that as a profile of a schema.org, where, indeed we should follow more closely those elements that are in a schema.org. For some of them, actually, we did get extensions within a schema.org that are useful for us, like the dimensions of variables measured, as it's called in schema.org, and this came from our request. And the thing is, as you said, it might happen that schema.org doesn't go as deep, at least not immediately, and for that is where we have the extra elements in that.
Right.
So just to I guess the next steps for this would be basically primarily Alejandra, you and Philippe working on this part, or do we start talking to the repositories?
You mean for these repositories?
Yeah, for the 3.
Well, with IEDB, we need to restart the conversation, but yes, we can follow up on that.
And then since ICPSR already has the schema.org, that would be, then figuring out what additional information is needed there. Because the ICPSR schema.org representation is probably more minimal than their sort of more complete DATs and other exports.
So for the ICPSR, should we bring in George into the conversation, obviously, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we should also take a look at what they're currently exporting.
Currently exporting.
Right.
Okay.
And compare that to what we're getting via the other methods that we're using.
Oh, okay. I think that's pretty much all that I wanted to talk about, and I will send out the NCE plans that were submitted to everybody on the CDT team so that there's more clarity. And are there any other issues that we need to talk about?
No, about the Jamian paper, did you look
Yeah,
at those comments? Is there anything we need from Jeff, or maybe you should let us know?
Yeah, I will. I will look at those and get them to
Just
Jeff.
make sure if there's any additional experiment needed. If not, then everything is just language issue we can fix easily. But if experiment, then we need to start early.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I did a quick read over of the email, and I might have missed something, but it sounded mostly language oriented. So.
Yeah, I think the comments are good. And we did revise the paper quite a lot. I mean, if you have time, also double check the paper. The version we submit, we added some evaluation on the ingestion, things like that.
I think they wanted some more details and clarifications, but probably not any more experiments.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
But as you said, I will again pull out the comments and then go line by line, and if it needs to be assigned to different people, I'll do that and get it to everybody. I should have done that last week. Is there anything else? Are there any other issues that we need to talk about?
None for
So,
me, Annie.
I know, Alejandra, you were asking about the DAX output.
Yes, sorry, because I joined it late and didn't hear about that.
So I think I'll let Firas answer that, but that's probably like the next thing in the pipeline for him to start working on.
Yes, maybe.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
If there's nothing else, I think we are done.
Okay. Thanks, Anna.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.